All right.
Okay, let's get Facebook happening. Okay. Hey everyone.
Howdy.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Let me just make sure this is okay.
Little flathead today.
Wait, this stopped. Are we live right now? Yeah, we're good. Okay, we're good. Just bear with us. Cool.
Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. Welcome.
So today we are talking about hamstrings, which if you know us, you know we are hamstring focused. I'm going to turn the heater off because it's making noise. John, you want to take that over?
So the hands, at bendable body, we stretch the whole body with resistance to change the fascia. But generally speaking, in the body, it's like the hole in the bucket. In terms of fascia, you want to change the densest fascia as best you can, because that'll be the limiting factor. Individually, you can have scars in the front, back, sides, anywhere. But generally and endemically, the lateral hamstring, central hamstring, medial hamstring, in that order, are really tough tissue associated with bladder, brain, and pancreas. It's on the back of the leg. And they're designed to be tendinous, membranous, bone-like, to keep us up and erect. They attach to the bottom of the pelvis, right? The bottom of the pelvis, and then just outside of the lower leg, below the knees. So when they contract and pull,
back up a little bit. That's better.
They bring us upright and extend the pelvis when things are kind of copacetic, right? When they get tight, they can pitch, in the Western cultures, they can pitch the pelvis forward, causing us maybe to go forward or create a sway back if we decide to put our shoulders back against our hamstrings.
Or you get a dowager's hump in the back of the neck.
Dowager's hump.
So wait, show everybody again from the side view what that flex pelvis looks like as a result of tight hamstrings, because people don't associate tight hamstrings with this. They don't realize that's what's causing it.
So, and again, when the most important thing a muscle does is, number one job is to move us. It contracts and shortens. So if these guys back here, these three hamstrings, which again are attached to the bottom of the pelvis, all really close together here, and then two of them attach inside the lower leg here, and one attaches here, and 1.5 here. Okay, so when they contract
and shorten,
they
have flexibility, in other words.
Right, they're able to flex. They extend, they pull this down, and then the neck and shoulders are free to go up.
Well, and also you get space in the front of the hip and the back of the
spine. This opens up too. Yeah, there. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Well, walk people through that, because so many people have tension in the front of the hip and think it's their psoas, and they have low back pain, and they think it's their core.
Totally. So, one thing you can look at, it's really cool. I do this a lot. Old pictures from the 50s, 60s, 70s, celebrities, athletes, and this is what we do, right? So my attention goes to how, and of course they're not mentally holding themselves in place, fully extended ribs in the body. Like, they have these really nice bodies, and then if you look to the 80s, 90s, and now, there's a lot of this going on. There's a lot of this going on, which from the front view would produce legs turned out, okay, arms turned in. So now, if the hamstrings are tight and they're the tougher tissue, they're going to dictate the movement in the front. So a lot of people have groin stuff, hip flexor stuff, psoas and all this, and that feels tight. Well, if you're pitched forward and the thighs are turned out, these are constantly overstretched. Could be here in the groin, could be in the hip flexor, psoas, and also the bone going into the hip joint is kind of held in a position, and there's no circumduct, like you're stuck. The denser the fascia here, the less movement at the joint, all the way up into the shoulders. The hamstrings are that impactful, and that's why we want you to focus on them The members get 3 months a year of hamstring focuses. It's really, really powerful.
So John, why is it if a person, so you just kind of talked about why you need to address the hamstrings if you have hip pain or front of hip pain or psoas pain or groin pain.
Mhm.
But now, why is it that from the bendable body perspective, core strength isn't going to solve ultimately low back pain? Because that's the other biggie. You know, I've got back pain, I need to strengthen my core.
Well, you can get relief from a lot of things for any kind of pain. But there was a time, 10, 15 years ago, it's all about the core.
10, 15 years ago, I feel like it's still going on.
Could be still going on. And like everything emanates maybe from here in terms of, all movement kind of thing. But don't kid yourself. The densest tissue controls the movement.
Densest fascia.
Densest fascia, tissue, fascia, connective tissue.
And so why are you going to get more relief, stretching your hamstrings with resistance and changing that dense fascia when it comes to low back pain than you would necessarily from strengthening the core?
Well, it's a more permanent change.
Okay. So walk us through what happens.
So this is a good time to demonstrate a resistant stretch for the hamstrings.
Okay, well, if we're going to do that right now, then we need to get the chairs out of the way.
Yeah. Kind of so what we want to do as we're demonstrating, and you can join along with us and stretch. Let me stretch my left leg for a simple standing hamstring. Oh, I got it.
Everybody can see it.
So just to give you the idea, I'm going to take a little step forward with that left leg and bend both knees. And the target muscle is the back of the leg. The first one we'll do the lateral hamstring of ladder. So turn the leg out. So a little step forward and then turn the leg out slightly to like 10 or 11 o'clock. Bent knees, right? Bent knees. Now the resistance is to pull the heel back into the yoga mat, down, back into the yoga mat. Keeping the bend in your knee, feeling how tight that is. See it tightened up? Keep it. Resist while you fold and relax on the way up. So this is the technique. The repetitions. It's resistance, right? So we'll do about half a dozen. We'll keep going here. And I'm going to reposition. Now the helper leg, the front of that gets a little tired and a little crampy because that's contracting and creating the opposite movement, which would be an isometric stretch movement, which is exhausting. But this is going to feel really good.
Don't you mean a strength movement on the opposite leg?
Concentric
strength. You said
I did say isometric. That's what I meant. Yeah. Well, it's not really moving. Okay. Let's do two more good ones. Pull that heel back. Pull that heel back. Pull that heel back. Now, shake it out a bit. Now, if you just stand there, see what you notice. It might be subtle, it might be obvious. The foot's softer, I'm feeling. It's a little more open here. But what I noticed and which I love is a little bit of space back here versus here. And I can feel this sat back a little bit. And this is still kind of pitched forward on black and dark blue. It's hard to see maybe. But this is still pitched. And this settled a bit. Now imagine doing, a couple hundred reps a day for a few months, and then you get this phenomenal change. So it creates space in the vertebrae. It creates space in the joints. And literally when the fascia is healthier, and when we do these moves, you get stronger and faster and less in pain and discomfort. But you're repositioning, you're realigning the body to like an anatomically correct position. So we had some questions that we'd like to address. Some people had
Well, we were supposed to show them stretches for all three hamstrings. Do you want to do that now or later?
Yeah, okay. So
I think you should do both legs so that they can do it with you.
Yeah, well, let's stay on the left leg and let's do brain. Let's do the central hamstring. We just did lateral. So now the same thing, a little step forward.
Because, people don't realize they have three hamstrings.
Yeah, no, when you put your hand back there, it feels like one solid cement block. You know what I mean? But they start to differentiate the more you stretch. So now we're going to do the central. Little step forward. Now the foot straight ahead to get the center back of the leg, okay? So pull the heel back. And I like to relax the foot if I can, but the heel is pulling back, Let it go. Pull the heel back. You can feel that force. You can feel that force. Keep a bend in your knee, and you decide how much of a bend. If you bend it a little more. Now, the other thing we got to mention, because it comes up all the time, you might not be feeling anything. You might just be feeling your heel pull back into the rug or into the yoga mat. And that's your resistance. If you put your hand here, you're going to feel it tighten up. You get those fingers in there, you're going to feel it lengthening. Let it go as you stand up. We don't feel our fascia. No one's ever gone to the doctor and said, my fascia is killing me. You know, it's even though it's really this amazing tissue that has many, many, many more nerve endings than the nervous system, communicates 10 times as fast as the nervous system. It's not wired the same way. We don't feel it. So let's keep going here. We're stretching the resistance, stretching the central hamstring. Let it go. Let's just do one more. Okay. All right. What happened? Legs feeling even better. Now I'm aware of the knee feeling a little loose. Got a little space in the knee. And this feels tight. But this didn't feel tight before this got loose. So what do you notice? Shoulders back. I feel like the left side of my body is like just generally more erect. It might be subtle, but you see here, you guys see? But this is still pitched forward. Medial hamstring, third hamstring runs along the pancreas muscle group. For this one, same thing, little step forward, but let's create a little more width between our legs. And your foot can be straight ahead. But if you can turn it in, great. Bend those knees. And so you're going to pull the heel not straight back, because when you create some width, it's easier to pull it straight toward the standing leg, the right leg. So pull it back, bend the knee, feel the resistance, and relax on the way up. Now, there's many, many ways and in positions, different leverage points that you can stretch the hamstrings in. We're doing the standing version, a standing version, or multiple standing versions. Let it go. Pull that heel back, keep a bend in the knee, and I like to extend the pelvis because it creates more force and keeps the muscle in the target leg. Let's do about a half a dozen. Let it go. Breathing in and out through your nose. Let it go. Couple more. Let it go. Relax your foot, your toes. Okay, gonna need a quad stretch over here. Anyway, what's going on now?
So yeah, what happened after that one?
That one, I feel the thigh turning in, which is a really nice thing to happen. What do you notice? What's going on? Foot's getting softer yet. Can you feel that? This foot feels hard and stiff, and this one doesn't. Now, this one didn't feel hard and stiff before this one got better. More pelvis extension. Again, it's probably not particularly noticeable.
Well, you've been stretching for a long time, for a lot of years.
Yeah, well, I still slightly pitched, but less. See, now you can start to see the difference, how this is pitched and this one is less pitched. Maybe a little more upright. So that helps the shoulder go back, hip, knee, feet, ankles. It's really impactful that way.
So I think there's two things we want to talk about right now. First of all, why is it that you had them just do one leg? And
we're going to do the other leg.
Oh, yeah, okay, we'll do it towards the end, but what's the value of doing one leg?
Well, okay, everyone's reference, and mine included, for years, my whole life, I was either in pain or I wasn't in pain. You didn't have pain, you felt great. All of a sudden, something hurt, you're like, oh my God, it hurts. But in between, there wasn't a whole lot going on in terms of awareness. But now, and this is, there's so many good things about resistance stretching with bendable body that you're going to get benefit from, but it's the awareness. So after you start stretching for a little bit, you're going to feel, oh, I'm tight. And then you'll stretch and you'll get better. Instead of, oh my God, my shoulder, I can't move it, it hurts. Like there's the in-between the pain shows up. Now, if there's a direct accident, that's something else. But yeah, you want it, and then you get to know your body more. And instead of just having that one pain point or those 2 or 3 pain points or that one problem that's bothering you, all of a sudden, as for me, a lot of people in the membership that have been doing it for a few years or even a few months, they're like, wow, I don't have any pain. I'm more aware of my body in ways that I was never aware of it. Like rotations that aren't so cool or tightness that you didn't really have awareness of.
Energy levels.
Oh my goodness, energy levels go through the roof when you start stretching.
So I think another point is, we sometimes skip ahead because we know that the bendable body method is completely safe if you have an injury. We never recommend that you strengthen or stretch into an injury. And during all of our stretches, where injuries usually go is joints. And so during all of our stretches, your joints are protected and we're not stretching into the joint. So if we know someone's doing it correctly, we can pretty safely say, go for it, whether you've got a hip issue or a shoulder issue or a back issue or whatever, that's not where we're stretching. But in addition to that, when we talk about the hamstrings, right, they're a muscle group that no matter what your problem point is, I mean, like you could have neck pain, you could have a shoulder tear, the hamstrings are going to help. And so I think that's something to talk about, because they are having such an impact on the orientation of the pelvis and the way that that affects the body going down and the body going up.
So yeah, every move we make, whether it's throwing or kicking
or walking,
the whole body's involved. That doesn't mean we're all doing the whole body, but the whole body. And this is the kind of thing where if you don't use it, you lose it. Shoulder problems, shoulder pain. And I'll use baseball as an example. With the injuries in the ligament on the inside here, Tommy John surgeries, the repair, what happens is, again, it's back to the pelvis. It's back to the pelvis. So if I'm going back to throw the ball, now I'm going to exaggerate. And so if my pelvis is pitched forward,
because your hamstrings are tight.
Because my hamstrings are tight. And I go to bring that ball back, and I want to bring that ball back. I don't see all.
You're fighting the shoulder.
I'm fighting. This is going against this. Actually, if this is pitched forward, this kind of has to follow. So if that's what's going on, of course I'm exaggerating, but not necessarily because these athletes, they have a little of that, they have a little of that, but they're going so far back to get the range and the torque and everything that instead of the pelvis extending and instead of the shoulder girdle going way back, that's not happening. So where does the movement, they're still making the movement, right? They're still making the movement. It happens here.
So that's where the injury shows up.
And if you think, well, if this is tight and this is tight and it's pushing you forward, it is unable to shorten to bring this arm back. But you're bringing it back anyway. And this all back, the back's not shortening. But you're bringing it back anyway, over and over and over. At one point, snap.
So we can confidently tell someone with an elbow injury, stretch your hamstring and you're going to get some relief. It's not that we don't say stretch the muscle groups associated with the elbow.
Yeah, you got to go directly after the shoulder and thing too.
But we're also going to say, you got to change that pelvis. Mm-hmm. You got to change the orientation of that pelvis. And the biggest way to do that is by changing the hamstring tissue. So from that standpoint, the way in which so many practitioners and methods out there focus on core strength, we focus on pelvis. Right? We really kind of do, because it's where everything emanates from. The knee, pelvis, the ankle, the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, they all come from there. And the biggest impact upon the pelvis is not the muscles on the front of the stomach. It's the muscles on the back of the legs. They're having the biggest vote on the orientation of your pelvis.
Yeah, just, another thing, it's always kind of occurred to me that the names of the muscles are kind of descriptive. Mm-hmm. It's where the front of the body presents, the number is psoas major, the rectus femoris, the pectoralis major. And then you get to the back and you got semimembranosus, semitendinosus, bicep femoris, like descriptive of bone and by design, but then it gets tighter because is this what we do for the first 12 years of our life?
Those muscle groups are more
Sit.
prone to developing hard fascia. And fascia, hard fascia, has more force in it than the strongest muscle you can find. So it's
Sure.
gonna overpower the orientation of your pelvis, no matter how strong your core muscles are. I mean, you could have, you know, the most hard iron six pack in the universe. Dense, hard fascia in the lateral hamstring is stronger.
And as I'm sitting here, if you just sat down after that 3 hamstring stretch in the left leg, can you feel the difference between your sits bone on the left and the sits bone on the right? Maybe the shoulder on the left, shoulder on the right. There's a difference, you know, and that's the awareness you want to have. Now, as you start stretching, you'll feel this leg is tighter than this leg, so arm side, or this muscle group. Oh, I feel this muscle stretch down here, and when I go to this leg, I feel it more up here. You know, you're going to start to identify what's going on in your body, and it's getting better and better the more you stretch.
Well, I think there are two things, you know. So on the one hand, people want to address their specific issue. So let's say a tear in the shoulder, right? And there are stretches to address that specifically. But then when you're factoring in the fascia, you really do have to look at the body universally as a whole. And where is the hardest tissue in the body? Because that's actually having just as much, if not more, in terms of long-term impact on whatever symptom or injury you happen to have, right? And the hardest tissue in the body is in the hamstrings. So like, for example, when people work with us ongoing, yes, we hit all of the big muscle groups associated with each of the primary joints to give people relief in each of those joints. We absolutely do. But we spend 3 times as much time on the hamstrings over the course of a year. So that's just to show you how important it is to change the hardest tissue in the body, no matter what your symptom is.
That, again, that's generally speaking, you know, and if the toughest tissue in your body, and you come to us and we're working on you, is somewhere in the, we're going to keep making, see where the toughest tissue is, you can do the most reps. They need the most reps to warm up, change the fascial structure.
I mean, okay, so someone might have an individual experience that created tougher tissue in the lats or the this or the that, but have we ever met anyone with, you know, functioning loose hamstrings in the 20 years we've been doing this?
I think I watched a few perform on TV, but I don't think
have
I
you
ever
like
worked with
personally them. So like people are saying, oh my God, my hamstrings are really loose. I can touch my toes.
Not from this generation.
Maybe you can talk about why touching your toes has nothing to do with loose hamstrings.
Well, it's not. So when you bend forward, your hamstrings are lengthening. So that is part of the equation. But the main equation is, again, whenever you want to make a movement. So in the baseball example before you throw here, the arm's got to go back. And that's where the injury usually occurs, right as they're at the end and they start to go right at that point. So if you got to bring the arm back, all these muscles on the back want to shorten nicely. And then as you bring the arm forward, all the front of the body muscles want to contract and shorten, so that happens. Okay, so just bending forward to touch your toes. What's shortening and what's lengthening? What's shortening and what's lengthening? So the back of the body is lengthening, but the front of the body is shortening. So people can't do this or you know, whatever it is. You stretch your quads, your hip flexors, your kidneys sexual stomach, the groin. You can even stretch the chest muscles, right? You can do a nice inversion for the psoas. It's really nice to do. And then once this is all stretched out, resistance stretched out, then you fold really nicely. You fold really, really nicely. And the limiting factor in movement and the cause of pain is the fascia, but it's a muscle that stopped doing its job, which is shortening to move us, because every muscle is attached across a joint.
Well, I think now is a really good time to demonstrate what it is that you get improvements on when you stretch your hamstrings, because it's a lot in the hips and the knees. And whenever people contact us and they're like, I have a hip problem, I have a knee problem, we're like, stretch your hamstrings. This kind of shows it, because, you know, when those hamstrings shorten, You can bend the knee, and you can, flex and rotate at the hip.
Yeah, so if it's a
Or
picture these
extend and rotate at the hip.
hamstrings back here, and they again attach to the bottom of the pelvis, and they attach out here. Now, if they're full of dense tissue and they're not shortening, they're literally pushing, like let's use the knee as an example. They're pushing the knee together from the upper body to the lower leg.
And you can't bend it back.
Yeah, you can't, this thing.
It hurts to sit, it hurts to stand.
If you've only stretched your left leg, you can do this with your left leg, then do that with your right leg. Feel the difference. I can still feel the difference. The left one's firing nicely and the left one's up, right one's up. So not only is there compression, but there's lack of rotation. But that doesn't mean we're not making the rotation, right? Every time you walk, every time you move, it's not just a linear movement, there's a rotational component. And it doesn't allow it to shorten, it doesn't allow the joint to rotate, it doesn't allow a lot of things.
So in short, if you're trying to touch your toes, stretching your hamstrings isn't going to really make that much better. Stretching the quads and the front of the legs are. But if you don't want to have knee problems and you don't want to have hip problems and you want to be able to optimally move those joints, the ankles as well, that's when stretching your hamstrings are going to have the biggest impact, because those are the movements that those muscle groups allow you to make. And so it's a big misconception out there. So we do have a few questions we want to answer, and then you're going to do that other leg, right?
Yeah, we're going to do that other leg. I want to do that other leg.
So what's the first question? I think there's also a couple questions that have
warm up exercise. Do you recommend before fascia stretching? So the fascia is a dense tissue, and first thing in the morning you roll out of bed and you're really tight. Great time to stretch because you're all tight. But we've recommended that people jump in an infrared sauna to heat the body up. You don't want to be fatigued. Like, it's great to resistance stretch after an event. So like if you go for a run or you do your gym exercise or you do your fitness class, I would resistance stretch after that. So your body's kind of warmed up and you can take it out kind of quick. So there's not a specific one.
There isn't really an exercise out there separate from stretching, resistance stretching, that we would recommend as a warm-up for resistance stretching.
Well, it's something you like to do and want to do. That's really what it is. You just do it and then you get to take it out.
Yeah, so we're not really thinking of it as a warm-up. We're thinking of it as...
Well, it's your event. It's your performance.
Right, yeah. The other question that Kathy had was, what fascia stretches are good after doing weights or TRX at the gym? So same thing.
Whatever muscles you've worked on, stretch
with resistance.
Yeah.
So it depends what muscles you're weightlifting with. Let's see. This is Bonnie. I have a hip replacement and am frustrated that most exercise classes online make no mention of what is and is not safe to do. I had a friend whose hip dislocated during a yoga class, and I almost experienced a similar incident. I've always been very flexible, but hamstrings have always been a challenge. Even worse now since I've curtailed my exercises. So I'm hoping, Bonnie, after watching this video, you have a different understanding of what flexibility actually is. A lot of times people define it as range of motion at a joint, and that's not really an accurate definition.
And most of our motion is a false range of motion.
Right.
Because my arms are internally rotated. So if I go to reach above my head, I'm just like a danger zone, especially if there's a lot of force or a quick sudden turn. Again, with the hips, the thighs are turned out, pelvis pitched forward. Any movement you make is a dangerous movement, basically. So the resistance stretching, like for your hips, the medial hamstring would be great to give you some relief. Hamstrings in general would be good. But the more you resist,
Well, so I just want to address your question about what shouldn't you do. So the thing about this method, and the reason that we don't have big red flags like don't do X if you have X wrong with you, is because our stretches don't go into injuries. We stay away from them. So if it's an injury in a muscle, we're going to have you go to a different muscle to stretch. We're not going to have you stretch in that muscle. And inherently, your joints are protected when you do resistance stretching. So your hip problem is not in danger if you're stretching correctly, pretty much any muscle group.
Yeah, you gotta find the right position, the stretch that's right for you, the one that you like to do, and then you resist a lot. And it's not a lot of range.
Yeah.
If you notice we were stretching there, I wasn't bending more than, 90 degrees to go all the way down. You only resist and move as long as you can keep resisting. If the resistance starts to wane,
And
you're
then
losing the contraction, and then it's not happening.
And so when you do it that way, your joints are protected. Basically, traditional stretching like yoga, not so much. Okay, I hope that answered your question. Let's see, Linda. I heard you say something about when your knees crunch, you should. Please share what to do. I missed that. What do you do if your knees are crunching? Like, I'm assuming you mean like during a stretch, but even if it's just in regular life, we would suggest that when you're stretching, stretches that the knee is involved in, you want to increase resistance and decrease range. Okay. The other thing you might want to do is take the knee out of play. So there's some hamstring stretches where you're just moving at the hip and not at the knee. And so that would be another good stretch.
I can only answer that in reference to resistance stretching, to find the right stretch for you to do to help eliminate and reduce the crunching. In terms of all the other stuff, I mean, our solution, that's all we have experience with
I think
resistance
she's
stretching.
asking in terms of when you're stretching.
Resistance
So yeah, resistance stretching.
Well, you want to, if you can, take the knee out of play and do a nice little stretch. Interlock your hands here. So now the knee's not involved. You flex the foot. You're on your back. You drive that leg down. You resist, and you pull up and let it go. So that wouldn't involve the knee. Depending on how bad it is, like Sita said, add more resistance and lessen the range. Because if you create a change in the fascia, you're going to create more space in the joint. And if you get like a 32nd or 16th of an inch or something that starts to move, that usually relieves the symptoms a great deal.
So the answer to the question is, if you have crunches in the knee, less range, more resistance, and try and find a stretch that takes the knee out of play. Okay, another question. I don't know who asked it though. I have discovered my hamstring strength is far from equal. What do you suggest? Welcome to the human body. Asymmetrical.
Yeah, well, ideally, is this a resistance stretcher?
I don't know.
Okay. So if you're resistance stretching, we would say, for instance, if your left leg's weaker than your right, or the way we think about it is more dense tissue on the left than the right. So if it's weaker.
Yeah, so for example, when you're stretching using resistance, you would have more force, more resistive force on the weaker leg.
And you would feel it less.
So that could be confusing because you could be like, wow, this leg has a lot of force. Is it stronger? No, it's weaker because our entry point in is fascia. So yeah, what would you suggest in that case?
Resistance stretch twice as much on the leg that's weaker than on your other leg. That's how you do that.
Yeah.
Because it'll get stronger and stronger the more you resistance stretch.
Because the more you stretch, you remove the dense fascia that's making the muscle weak. Okay, so this is Dennis. Coincidentally, I just received a diagnosis of a strained hamstring from my primary care physician. She had a sports medicine background. After complaining of pretty severe pain in my right buttock that made walking and sitting very uncomfortable but which responded well to anti-inflammatories and muscle relaxants, she advised to rest and not stretch the hamstring. I'm not very confident about this diagnosis and will be tuning in tomorrow to hear what you have to say about the hamstring. So the pain is in the buttock when he sits and walks.
Well, without seeing you or working with you directly, the general rule of thumb is if it's back here, you want to stretch those quads, those hip flexors, the groin. And if you're resistant stretching, you can find a hamstring that doesn't put you in a position where you're overstretching.
And going
like this wouldn't be a good stretch for you for this here, right? It would be a position
like maybe a hamstring lunge,
or the standing one where when you're like this, basically, I mean, this is a short position, but this is a pretty short position too. It's the ones we just did. And then you bend the knee.
Even better would be a hamstring lunge where you stretch the lower hamstring instead of up high, closer to where you're feeling pain.
The folding forward might overstretch that too. So that's why you got to do these first. So it makes folding easier and creates better rotation. so that it's not being continually pulled.
See, the thing is, Dennis, we agree it's not a good idea to stretch where there's a strain. It's just gonna, it's you want to leave it alone, you want to let it heal, but you want to be super strategic about going to associated areas that are going to take the pressure off that strain.
And again, the upper body, you do the back of the shoulders, you know, what we call completing muscles for the hamstrings. You do those 3 muscles that match in terms of it lining up with the hamstrings, and that's going to create space on the back of your body. That's another.
So this next question from Laura is very similar to Dennis's. Will these exercises help with tight glutes? So in short, yes.
Oh yeah.
So
Get
yes,
ready for
hamstring
that.
stretches would help with tight glutes, but we would also say you should go to the front of the body because you're experiencing the tightness in the back. So go to the front.
Inside, depending where on the glutes, you'll get relief.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that your hamstrings don't need attention. They probably do.
And the IT band goes right into glutes. I mean, you can stretch symptom area with resistance. You absolutely can. We're just, to the degree that you're injured,
Yeah,
is going to determine
so
how
if you're
much you
telling
can
us, if
resist.
you're telling us that it's tight, you can stretch a symptom area. But if you're saying it's injured, we would probably say stay away from it.
Yeah, you know the resistance stretch. Once you learn the technique and start doing it, and you go to the balancing muscle on the other side, and then you start working around, you're gonna be fine.
So you want to take them through that second leg?
Yeah,
You
that's
guys
it for the questions.
Yeah, there are no more questions. There might be some that people posted. I'll take a look.
Okay. So let's see if that leg still feels good on the left.
We should move the chairs out of
Let's
the way.
move. I'm moving. I got little rollers here. And if you're new and you're learning the technique, you know, be patient with yourself, because even though the movements are really kind of simple and they take a little bit to stay with the resistance. So I'm going to do the lateral hamstring on the right, little step forward, turn that leg out, bend that knee, and pull that leg back, pull that leg back, pull that leg back continuously. And then let it go as you come back up. And let's do it again. We'll do about 8 in each muscle group. And we recommend doing 3 sets. You can do a lot more. You can just do a set. But, you know, if you ever weightlifted, it's a really great framework outline for resistance stretching. You know, 3 sets of 10, 4 sets of 10, or, you know, start out the first set a lot, the second set more force, less reps, third set even more force, even less reps. You know, the resistance stretching, there's tons of force that you want to get into so that you can change this fascial tissue that's physically the limiting factor. It's the limiting factor in our movement. It restricts us. And when it's healthy, it allows us to make these kind of fun, great movements and enjoy things much, much better. Anything from sitting, standing, running, walking, and all the activities we like to do. It'll improve your singing, your writing. These are things that people have told us. I've experienced the singing, so have you, Sita, right? All right. That was, check it out. Okay, so that foot's starting to soften a little bit. The leg feels a little stronger than it was. So see what you notice. Anything. You might not notice what I'm noticing. It might be something else, or you might not notice anything at all, especially if you're just starting out, and that's fine. That's fine. Something is happening when you're resisting. So let's do the central hamstring, brain. That first one, lateral hamstring, was bladder. This is the brain.
Super important to remember that the knee's bent.
Yeah, both of my knees are bent. I'm pulling that front heel back, see the foot straight ahead. Resist, continuously and actively pull that heel back.
I think that's another really valuable question that people ask a lot. Are we holding the stretch?
No, we're not.
It's a movement.
Well, it's the only thing that changes the fascia in this context is resisting and moving through the resistance. Let it go. Continually resist. And when I pay attention to the resistance at the start, the body shows up, the asymmetries, your attention goes to your shoulders, your neck, your head, your hips, your feet, and then that's where you make those little minor adjustments that actually increase the force without you having to add more force. Of course, you can just bring everything you got. Okay. Oh, whoa, oh, that's starting to soften up now. That shoulder back. You can breathe a little better on that one now. So see what you notice, foot softer yet again. That's nice. The left one is still nice and soft. Legs nice and strong. Okay, medial hamstring. So this one, we create a little more width, the pancreas muscle group back here. So I'm going to go touch wider. I like to turn my foot in. You don't have to. You can be straight ahead. Bend those knees. Pull that heel back. Pull that heel. And not back. It goes back toward the leg that you're standing on. Let it go. Resist. And my attention at the moment is going to the pelvis. Wants to extend. Think of tucking the tailbone. Got a nice adjustment in my knee. Let it go. And another nice thing to do is to hold the muscle group you're stretching, when you can. If your arms are involved, it's hard, you can't do it. But feel it's resisting, lengthening, let it go, and it softens up a little bit. Not much. But the more you resist and stretch, the softer it gets when you let it go, and the better the contraction when you contract. Not that it's not like steel right now, but the muscle will contract more and there'll be less dense fascia. So it's a really kind of cool and important thing that needs to happen, wants to happen in our bodies this way. Okay. All right, what happened? Shake it out. So on that one, I love it because I always get that internal rotation that I so covet. So what else is going on? That opened the chest up, I feel, on that side.
You can see it.
Cool. So it's like an erector set. You just start to get a better and better body.
So we do have a couple questions. I'm going to just slide in here,
Oh,
John.
I got taller.
And they might not be able to see me right now on Instagram. So I'm just going to pop in here and John's going to answer them. Let's see what we got. Amanda, I was told by my osteopath to stretch the quads as well as the hamstrings for my back. So is your osteopath talking about resistance stretching or is she talking about traditional stretching? Because we're not talking about traditional stretching. Yeah, you can do both for sure, but totally. We would say focus on the lateral hamstring.
Quads. Yep.
You want her to focus on the quads and not the lateral hamstring for back pain?
Oh, no, the lateral hamstring for back pain in general, yeah. But quads are nice to stretch too.
With resistance.
Yeah.
Let's see, Maria. John said, foot getting softer. I did not recognize how stiff my ankles and feet had become. As I continue this practice, I see results daily. We are entering week 4 within our membership program. I was barely walking a 30-minute mile due to foot ankle stiffness. As of week 2, I am up to 2 miles per day. 20-minute mile with no foot ankle issues. I've been focusing on hamstrings.
Go, Amanda.
That's not
Keep
Amanda.
Going.
That's not Amanda. That's Maria.
Maria.
Let's see. Isabel, I have problems with costochondritis. I haven't heard of that. Have you, John? Chondritis. Are there any good stretches to help with these hamstring stretches? We would have to see what it is. Yeah, we would have to see what that is. We haven't heard of that. Christina, any stretches for plantar fasciitis? Yes.
Medial hamstring.
The one that the third one that John did for the medial hamstring.
Yeah.
I know it's all connected. The foot I have issues with is the side where the hamstring is tight. I do stand at work all day. Sure. So if you start doing medial hamstring stretches, that's going to help a lot. Maria, woohoo. Awesome. Okay. A couple questions on YouTube. Let's go to that. So let's see
Tubers.
What we've got. Random question. What make are those stools? I forget.
Swooper.
Swooper. There you go.
SWOOPER. Swooper. They're cool.
So Sherry's saying I had a hamstring completely detached from a fall. I couldn't believe how it affected my entire body. I can imagine. Let's see. Famida. I am dealing with knee issues. I think it might be a meniscus irritation. It feels better from the last stretch series. Yeah. So if it's meniscus, you want to focus on that central hamstring.
Keep going.
Let's see, Kelly, which one of these will have the biggest impact on improving the arches of the feet? Medial hamstring, just like with plantar fasciitis. So medial hamstring, that's the
And
third
you can
one.
balance those out with quads too.
Yeah.
Because they work together nicely, the pancreas and stomach.
Resistance stretching, not
Resistance
traditional stretching. Let's see,
Yeah.
Jay, should the knee be straight when doing that? No, bend in the knee. Kim, when doing the inner hamstring stretch, medial hamstring, what direction is John pulling his heel? Back and in toward the other foot, pretty much.
Yeah. You know, the first two hamstrings we did, lateral hamstring,
Got
central
here.
hamstring, is kind of like, because the feet were close together, you're kind of like pulling them back. You're just pulling back. But okay, so the other leg, in any stretch we do for the hamstrings, we pull our heel back. The supporting leg or the helper leg drives in the opposite direction. But we don't recommend thinking about squeezing your legs together. Doesn't seem to be as effective. And so you just pull the heel back of the leg you're stretching.
She's asking about the medial hamstring stretch.
Yeah, so the medial hamstring stretch, if you get down on your knee, with my right knee, left foot, pull the heel back. I'm pulling it straight back to the knee. And if I'm standing, I'm pulling it straight back to the standing leg. So that's how we do that medial hamstring stretch.
So back and in. So we just got a confirmation on what costochondritis is. And it is inflammation of the connective tissue in the rib area can feel very painful and mimic a heart attack. So inflammation.
A couple things about that. Inflammation, thymus stretches
for the back of the
for
shoulders.
the immune system to address inflammation in general.
What area of the body is that? Because nobody knows what the thymus stretch is.
It goes into the ring finger, up here, on the shoulder, into the traps. Okay, that's the muscle group that you stretch for inflammation. In the cartilage area, in the ribs, you want to do appendix. That's on the front, right here, goes up into the bicep, attaches on the inside, and the lat muscle is all along the back and attaches to the bottom of the pelvis and up the spine. Got excitable dogs here.
Sorry about that, you guys.
That would help with cartilage and the ribcage area. And outside of that, if you can point to the rib cage, that would also tell us another muscle group that would like to be stretched to help you out.
So this is great. So we've answered a bunch of questions. We talked about the hamstrings, just to kind of update on what we have happening. We teach live classes on Zoom every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
Yeah, you guys would love those.
You can sign up
45 minutes.
You can sign up for a 12-pack, which is every day that we teach them, or a 4-pack, which is on Saturdays for those of you that work during the week. And we're actually starting new 12 and 4-packs tomorrow. And so you can sign up for that on our website. We've also got courses coming up, which is a longer training. Which is a longer training. It's a 2-day online training. You can do it from anywhere in the world. So
you want to take a little weekend deep dive and have a manual problem-solving skills like we were just talking about. What you know all that after that weekend training.
So those are happening mid-January and mid-February, and you can find out about those on our website. I'm trying to think what else we have going on right now. Of course, we have an incredible membership site that you can check out at any time. So bendablebody.com is where you go for all of this, but we have plenty of amazing videos on YouTube.
There's about 40, 50 videos. Our blog on our website has about 40, 50 articles with accompanying videos.
You
can check all that out. And
And,
so
yeah.
hopefully we'll be live again next week, or at least again before the holidays. And hope everybody
Yeah.
enjoyed this.
Thanks.
For the questions.
Have a great Sunday, everybody, and great week, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.